am not quoting any sentence about all this about Mr. Thomas. Let's not be unfair. This gentleman has received 2 CVC clearances before being appointed by the very same institution he is now heading. He is there in a list largely for the reason that another person, a former chief minister of that state, got twice 2 long stays by the Supreme Court and earlier by the High Court, which did not permit a decision on this matter. His case and his defense is that as Food Secretary he simply signed a decision which was taken for implementation by him. That's all. He did not take the decision.
No, that's the point you're
perhaps
making.
Perhaps he might well have been dropped earlier.
That's also the point that Mr. Thomas is making. But Sandeep Bamse wants to come in and refute this argument. Sandeep.
No, when the foundation of his appointment is shrouded in controversy, you had a 3-member panel: the Prime Minister, the Home Minister and the Leader of the Opposition. Logic says that there should have been consensus when there is such a crucial appointment that is to be made of a Central Vigilance Commissioner. What happened was that it was a 2:1 with a clear dissent note being issued by the Leader of the Opposition. Why did she do that? Obviously there was something amiss as far as Mr. Thomas was concerned, and as we've seen over the last couple of months, there is a lot amiss with Mr. Thomas. Now, what does the Committee on Public Undertakings with the Kerala Legislative Assembly tell us? It tells us very clearly the knowledge and consent of higher officials is an indispensable factor for the approval and finalization of the whole deal. I agree with partly with Mr. Singhvi that one can't comment from documents, but this document is based, and the date is 98-2000, which is post facto. The palm oil issue took place in 1991. This is a Kerala Legislative Assembly Committee of Public Undertakings document, which clearly indicts Mr. Thomas's role. And to stay with Mr. Thomas was also the DOT Secretary, and it was his job to issue show cause notices to several of these licensees. He did not issue a show cause notice. It is only Mr. Kapil Sibal who has come as the new minister, and he has said that he is going to issue show cause notices to these 85 out of the 122 licensees on December 20. It should have been done by Mr. Thomas when he was DOT Secretary.
Raising very serious questions, as Sudhir Kumar says, about his continuance and what it means for the post of the CVC. But let me put what the Congress is saying to the BJP. The Congress is accusing the BJP and all other political parties and also the media of being unfair to the CVC. Ms. Sitharaman, respond to this allegation that given the fact that the matter is currently being looked at by the Supreme Court, Dr. Singhvi says wait till the time the Supreme Court decides. If the Supreme Court says the CVC cannot continue, that is something this government will accept. Why are you not prepared to wait, madam?
We'll certainly wait now that it is with the Supreme Court. All of us are duty bound to wait, and we certainly understand the spirit with which a case which is sub judice will have to be spoken. But that doesn't mean that the facts which have been placed in before the Prime Minister and the Home Minister by the Leader of the Opposition can be forgotten. It is not as if even at the stage of appointment, these information that his name still is a part of a charge sheet can be denied. We can all go into details of what is the nature of the case, and I'm sure the Honorable Supreme Court will come out with its verdict. But the fact remains that in spite of 10 long years, that name could not be removed from the charge sheet, nor could 2 different governments which came into power in Kerala thought it fit to remove his name. So, if there was a contention about the very nature of the case in which he is involved, well, it was a CVC, it was a Vigilance Commission in Kerala which has gone to the court. We don't even need to go into the details of this. That's for the Honorable Supreme Court to look at. But the fact remains that his record was not impeccable. To have considered him to be appointed as a Chief Vigilance Commission itself was an attempt by the government here to overlook, or possibly with any other reason we do not know, to overlook the fact that objections were raised by the Leader of the Opposition.
But Dr.
Now
Singhvi,
to then come and say now the Supreme Court will, that the Supreme Court will have a look at it is, I think, buying time, and it's not fair. And I think now at this stage, with the kind of statements that we are hearing, not from us, not from the opposition parties or other political parties, even from the fact that the CBC himself is periodically appearing in the media to say what he wants to say, it is high time he went away, so that at least the government doesn't have to spend its energy defending a decision which has become highly contentious.
Rahul, if I could just come in here. Why does the judiciary have to take a decision on this man? Why hasn't the executive acted on him? There is a clear case of criminal conspiracy. There is a charge sheet against him. Here is a man who was also DOT secretary at the wrong time, immediately at a time when these licenses were issued by A. Raja. Why is it that the judiciary has to act? Why is it that the executive has to wait for the judiciary?
It's becoming a trend, because even in the 2G scam case,
it's the same story.
The executive tells the judiciary we are prepared for the Supreme Court to monitor it. Let me put that question to Dr. Singhvi. Dr. Singhvi, the CVC's post, given its extreme sensitivity, it's like Caesar's wife. The CVC must be above suspicion. That's the point the former CVC Sudhir Kumar makes. That you've tarnished the image of the CVC's office.
Can I explain?
Yes,
there are a few points here which need to be explained. First of all, I've heard no answer to one basic point. Mr. Thomas stands appointed. Anybody who has seen the act knows that there is no power of removal in the sense of issuing him a removal order. It's a complicated procedure, very similar to the impeachment procedure, but not going to Parliament. You just have to see Section 6 of the Act. Now, therefore, the only question remains is, A, was his appointment wrong? B, should he continue? Now, no executive power can remove him. Let's get that very clear. Without following an extremely complicated, cumbersome procedure. Therefore, he will go only if the Supreme Court makes serious adverse observations against him. Remember, even the Supreme Court would not be removing him then under the Act, but would be making adverse comments which will necessitate his going out of a moral kind of obligation to the Supreme Court. Number two would be his appointment. Now, the very question before the Supreme Court is the validity of the appointment. That's the very question.
No, but
and if I don't mistake, as recently, just a minute, let me complete, please. You had three people speaking, you had so many points, let me answer them one by one. As far as I remember, less than 24 hours ago, a colleague spokesperson of Nirmala ji held a press conference on the very issue of the appointment, which was being decided today and which has now been put for 27th. Now I am asking you, suppose all three of us today decide unanimously that this CVC must go, and the bar of public opinion says he must go. There is of course no procedure for his removal. And the Supreme Court on 27 decide his appointment is valid. What are we going to do?
Mr. Sudhir Kumar, as a
we
former
decide all of us
CVC,
that he should stay. One second, let me complete, 1 minute. So conversely, let us assume that we all decide he is okay, good man, let him stay. And the Supreme Court on 27th makes adverse observations, what's going to happen? None of you are thinking of that. Number two is very important. The question raised by Mr. Bamza is important. Everybody is assuming that there is a section in the Act which requires unanimity in appointment. That's the crucial question before the court on an interpretation of a provision. According to me, if you pick up the Act right now, and you should have a copy of that, and see the section, it is the appointing authority's stated case in the court that there is absolutely no requirement of unanimity, none at all. Unanimity is desirable. If however three people don't agree, the post can't go vacant. If three people don't agree, then the only rule known to mankind is majority rule.
No.
And that's all that happened. Ms. Nirmala ji is
Nirmala Sitharaman wants to come in and respond to you. The fact also is there were two other officers on that panel about whom there was unanimity who were not accepted by your government.
One second. You are all, and in particular the BJP spokesperson, is assuming what is sought to be proved. It is precisely the interpretation of that section which is also before the Supreme Court.
Okay, let Nirmala Sitharaman respond to you. Dr. Singhvi, you made your point. Go on, Nirmala.
There is absolutely no language.
Rahul, I need to come in here.
Yes, please.
I'm glad, although I'm unhappy, that repeatedly warning particularly the BJP to not talk about a matter which is sub judice, that's exactly what Mr. Singhvi is drawing us to do. However, since he's come into the segment where he is attributing a certain kind of attributing a certain assumption to the BJP, I would want to put that forward. Whether we infer the act to say that there should be a consensus or not, let's agree with Mr. Singhvi. You don't need to go by consensus, you will go by brute force. But the spirit of having a vigilance commissioner who is going to be of impeccable credentials is not served any purpose. You have not attended to that by brazenly going only by the brute majority, and later on to say whether it was a charge sheet on corruption or on anything else, or to get into technicality and then say wait for the Supreme Court to talk, are all tactics to buy time. The whole spirit of a vigilance commissioner and the direction of the Supreme Court by including the leader of the opposition in the committee was to have a sort of consensus. You don't go by technicality, sir, especially when you had two other names from where you could have brought in somebody else. Even after Mrs. Swaraj very clearly said, look, these are the allegations which are not being put forward by the BJP, but it is in the form of a charge sheet.
Okay, let me put one question. Let me put one question to Sudhir Kumar. Let me put one question to Mr. Sudhir Kumar.
Party should not.
Mr. Sudhir Kumar, you've heard everything the Congress and the BJP are saying. You've also been a past CVC yourself. Ceteris paribus, things being the way they are, do you think we should wait till the 27th? Given the sensitivity of this post, do you believe Mr. Thomas should step down immediately to avoid further embarrassment? Mr. Kumar.
You know, my earnest request to all concerned and everyone involved in this discourse is kindly restore the image and the efficacy of the institution called the Central Vigilance Commission. Now, I mean, it has been dragged into enough of controversy. Can we devise a method to pull it out of this? I mean, whatever way is agreeable or acceptable to all the political parties.
Do you believe, sir, that that would be possible only if this CVC steps down?
You see, if the image, I mean, you see, one person steps down, then you choose another one, you find a successor, but then when you do that, whether the resignation comes in or a fresh appointment comes in later, but kindly do it in the larger, in national interest and in the interest of the institution. If corruption is a major issue which has to be fought nationally, then it becomes very important that the CVC's image remains uncompromised and the CVC's effectiveness in terms of superintendence, as well as, you see, for the vigilance administration, supervision over the vigilance administration of the central government and central bodies must be effectively restored.
That's an important point you're making. You're saying restore the image of the CVC. Do not get bogged down by technicalities. It's the office, an office that's had a lot of respect so far. That needs to be maintained. Let's just hope the government is listening. Let's just hope Mr. Thomas's own conscience is listening, because he came out and put out a brazen defense. The Committee on Public Undertakings, the report that Headlines Today has put out tonight, clearly shows that there's a lot he needs to answer for. Thank you all. Did the SIT behave like Modi's police? Former Gujarat top cop questions the clean chit given to Narendra Modi, says the Gujarat CM would not have got away scot-free had the SIT acted on his investigation report. Details are coming up on the other side of a short break. Stay with us.
Just in.